the first thing I thought about, I guess, suppose, from a costume point of view, was the clothes that were worn in the Klondike in 1898. And at that time in America or in Alaska, it mainly would have been cotton clothing, because America's main source of main clothing are cotton. Whereas clothes in Ireland at that time were much more wool and linen and heavier fabrics. So I knew I wasn't going to do well sourcing fabrics or clothes or costumes from Ireland. So I started to look further afield, and in my research found a couple of hire houses in Europe that were able to help me out, who had done some westerns and various different things. I suppose I didn't really think of it as a western, because the people that went to the Klondike were mainly city folk who had gone on a quest to make their fortune. So they had really taken their clothes, which would have been much more city clothes, suits and hats, and so they weren't very outdoor clothes. They were much more everyday clothes. So I just did my research on the time from cities in the East Coast and the West Coast of America and what people wore then. So that's where the research started. It's sometimes, there is the novelty there. I mean, there was. I had found some really interesting information about the list of clothings that people were told to buy if they were going to, go on a gold rush. Because around this time in America, in the late 1800s in America, a lot of gold rushes had taken place. There was the Californian gold rush, and someone described it to me a little bit like a gap year that we modern people now do between student life and real life, that people went on a bit of a gap year to a gold rush town to kind of seek their fortune, and it worked for some and it didn't for others. So very few people went totally prepared to stay. They went there on a bit of a quest, and they bought a certain amount of the resources that you needed to survive, but most of them didn't, and they didn't survive and left. I guess it was a bit of a novelty for some people to do it, and hence, our story, it ended after 2 years, because people ran out of steam and they didn't have the provisions, and it didn't take off, and not everyone found gold, so they went back to the cities and back to their day jobs.